Hi there, hope you're doing well. This is Dan here. In today's video, I'm going to break down the soul bass sound and how you can get it. I've just written a book, R&B Soul Motown Bass Lines. It's out soon, and it's 20 bass players roughly, and 100 bass lines in that style. And out of all those bass players, every single one used a Fender bass, usually something like this. Now, this is a 1968 Fender Precision bass, and Bob Babbitt played one of these. But don't worry, I'm not going to suggest to you go out and buy a very expensive old bass from the 60s to get the tone. You can do it other ways, and I'll show you a few different basses I've got, a few different ways you can do this. But we've got this just one split coil pickup, flat wounds, and a mute here. Now, the bridge covers on those old basses had a foam mute underneath that would sort of sit on the top of the strings. You can just get a piece of foam or sponge or anything that sort of deadens the strings a bit and stick it down there. Make sure you tune up afterwards, because it sometimes does change the tune. This is the tone knob. At the moment, it's backed off a little bit. But that's the beauty of a precision bass. Now, all these players, they didn't really have much of a choice. A lot of them were upright double bass players, and they came into the studio. This new electric bass came along, and Leo Fender just got it completely right, 1951 or 2, was it? But look, they didn't have much choice. Now, you've got loads of choice these days. I think flat wounds, again, most of the basses were strung with flat wounds. These are Labella Jamerson strings. But just it's that dead sort of old sound that you get really across the board. Fender do a really great 1962 pickup replacement. So if you had a cheap P bass, you can probably fit one into that. Get some flat wound strings, fairly heavy gauge. I can't remember the gauge of these, but they're quite thick. Jamerson had the action quite high. That was the setup really for a lot of players. And then we've got, this foam mute that you can put under there. In terms of amps, it was really the Ampeg B15. Again, in the book with my research, lots and lots of players use that. And what I have here is I'm using the Universal Audio plugin of it, and it's just really great. Ampeg do one as well, and you can get lots of different amp sims that sound pretty good. So you can use that. Certainly recording if you're playing live. An Ampeg B15 15-inch speaker, and it's a valve amp. So you can actually put a pedal like a what is it? I've got a Tech 21 VT bass, something like that. You can put in front of your amp just to make it sound a little bit more old school. This is a 1978 Fender Precision. Now, by no means do you have to get a vintage bass, which are obviously a little more expensive than the new ones. But this is strung with elite player strings. They're round wound, they're nickel plated. They've been on for a bit of time. I've got no mute going on. And it's that dark sound. I think with soul bass tone, that's what you tend to go for. Compare it to 80s tone, which is zingy, bright, stainless steel strings. This is the other end of the spectrum. It's at the dark end. And you can still get a really good bass tone with, a maple neck, which is supposed to be bright. Stainless steel strings, admittedly they're slightly old, and no mute. You don't have to go vintage, but out of all those players that I was analyzing, they all, or most of them, used Fender Precision basses. So if you're really after that R&B Motown soul sound, I don't think you can go wrong. You can even buy really cheap basses, put that 62 pickup, or Curtis Novak do great pickups. Aguilar, they do genre specific pickups. Put that in. Get some flats on it, and it's going to sound really, really good. Jerry Jamot and David Hood, two great soul bass players, they played a Fender Jazz. And Bootsy Collins did some soul stuff, then he went into funk. A lot of the funk players started to use Fender Jazz basses, partly because the neck is a little bit thinner on them and much easier to play, although this 1975 neck is a bit bigger and chunkier than my 78 P bass. So, that rule doesn't always, hold true. But here we've got Again, these are Elites players. They're a little bit old. I've got no foam mute here. These are stainless steel strings. A little bit more bite, a little bit more growl because it's a jazz bass. But here's one thing you can do that Joe Osborne, a great session bass player, he used to do. A Fender Jazz with flats, strung with flats, just sounds amazing. This one isn't, but you can go down that route as well. He used to solo completely the front pickup like this, completely dial off the bridge pickup and take off some of the tone. And you suddenly have a bit more of a precision bass tone, a soul Motown tone. So if you're after a more versatile bass, then 2 single coil pickups like this is probably the way to go. I don't know, if you're in a functional society band, you play at the weekends, you need a bass that covers more styles, I would possibly go for that. You can do this little trick, dial in that sort of P-bass sound, but for slap and all kinds of other techniques, a jazz bass is much more versatile. But if you're that kind of person that just loves that old school soul sound, then perhaps you want to go to the P-bass side of things. I really recommend you try them out because, like I said, this jazz bass neck is bigger than this 78 P-bass that's lying just there. And I would never have known that unless I got my hands on it. There are some P-basses that people just hate because they're just too chunky, too big. That might be their opinion of P-basses sealed because of that, but they are different. So, you know, I hope that helped a little bit. I do have a 1966 Fender Ampeg. I'm not recording with it now. I'm recording straight into the computer with that plugin. But obviously, if I were going live, I would actually just use I use a Mark bass live. You could put a little pedal in front of it, and you can get your tone that way. But soul bass music, what I love about it, there's no effect. It's just really, really simple. It's one tone, and it's all about the feel and the playing. So if you do want to know about that book, perhaps subscribe to the channel. Please like and share the video. And if you have any questions, let me know. Thanks very much for watching. See you next time.